Order. Déclaration des députés, honorable député de Dorval.
Statements by members. The Honourable Member for Dorval-Lachine-LaSalle. Mr. Speaker, this summer was a season full of festivities and accomplishments in Dorval-Lachine-LaSalle. I had the pleasure of participating in dozens of events in my riding. The inauguration of the Aqueduct Promenade in Marie-Claire Kirkman-Casgrain Park, the launch of the Duff Court Community Market, and of course all of the celebrations, including the 125th anniversary of the city of Dorval, the 375th of Lachine, and the 150th of Canada.
Additionally, this summer, the Ministry of Employment's Skills Link program has created dozens of jobs for young people in the riding. The Minister of Environment came to Lachine to announce our decade-long partnership with the Government of Quebec to ensure a healthy St. Lawrence River, and the Minister of Status of Women personally came to our open house to discuss the impact of poverty on women. I had a great summer, and I have a feeling that thanks to this government, the summers of Dorval, Lachine, and LaSalle are only going to get better and better. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for York Simcoe.
Today marks World Architecture Day. Architects make the framework of our lives, and architects dream the future of where we live, work, and play. When architects dream well, their work becomes part of the story of our lives. Preserving our built heritage benefits all Canadians. That's why I introduced Bill C-323, which will create a tax incentive for Canadians who restore and rehabilitate their heritage properties. This bill has the support of the Royal Architecture Institute of Canada, who said it was good news and an opportunity for all members of all political parties to support the retention of Canada's historic buildings. Canadians care about outstanding architecture around them. We are worse off when magnificent buildings are demolished or neglected. We now have an opportunity to support Canadians working to preserve historic buildings so they can be enjoyed by generations to come. On World Architecture Day, I encourage all members to help preserve our built heritage and support Bill C-323.
Honourable Member for Willowdale.
Mr. Speaker, as a Member of Parliament for one of Canada's most diverse ridings, I deeply appreciate the immense contributions that generations of Asian Canadians have made to our great country. In that spirit, I'm proud to rise today in celebration of two wonderful events taking place on Parliament Hill this week. This evening, I'm pleased to welcome Korean Canadians from across Canada to a joint celebration of Canada's 150th anniversary and Korea's National Foundation Day. In addition, on Wednesday, it is my honor to be co-hosting a Mid-Autumn Festival on the Hill in celebration of the upcoming harvest. Dodo, Malgo, Doldol, Malgo, Hanga, Wiman, Ga Ta Ra. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable député.
The Honourable Member for Hochelaga. Mr. Speaker, today is National Habitat Day, another opportunity for me to talk again about the persistent housing problems in Canada. Despite positive rhetoric, Canada's housing record is far from glorious. We're still waiting for details about the housing strategy, but it's already clear that the investments needed to curb the crisis are not immediately available. Yet this crisis is very real and affects the most vulnerable members of our society: single-parent families, seniors, recent immigrants, and persons with disabilities. And then there are Indigenous people who often live in terribly overcrowded conditions in buildings that are not appropriate to their lifestyle or to the climate. And what are the Liberals doing? Well, they're pushing back 90% of these new investments until after 2019. It's time to take concrete steps to stop this crisis from getting worse. And especially, it's time that we recognize that housing is a right.
The
Honourable Member for Honoré-Mercier. Mr. Speaker, I'm very excited to rise today in the House to congratulate our 29th Governor-General, Her Excellency the Right Honourable Julie Payette, after her installation ceremony earlier today. She's a scientific communicator, engineer, and astronaut. She's someone who's always been very active in her community and someone who was able to capture our collective imagination. Ms. Payette is an inspirational woman who has shown leadership and dedicated her entire life to exploring.
She's representative in Canada. I know that she will continue to make us proud here at home and abroad. And I would also like to take a moment to thank the Right Honourable David Johnston for his exceptional service and for fulfilling his duties with such integrity and grace. I believe I speak for all members in this House in wishing him and his wife Sharon all the best as he moves on to other projects. Merci.
The honourable member for Chatham-Kent-Leamington.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And this Saturday, I attended the 163rd opening of the Highgate Fair in the eastern part of my riding at Chatham-Kent-Leamington. We enjoyed all you can expect from a great country fair, beginning with a great parade by Parade Marshal Woody McKillop, a pie auction, craft displays, old and new farm equipment, as well as farm animal showings by the local 4-H club. This was especially exciting for Faye and I as we watched our grandkids compete in the calf, beef, and rabbit competitions. All in all, the weather was great, the crowd was enthusiastic, and all the kids had a great time. Thank you to all the organizers, and congratulations to the community of Highgate for putting on a terrific event. I look forward to next year and enjoying another wonderful day at the Highgate Fair.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Léonard Saint-Michel. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to congratulate Canada's Chief Scientist, Dr. Mona Nemer. Born in Beirut, her appointment is a great honour for the entire Lebanese community in Canada. Other Lebanese-Canadian scientists also distinguish themselves. For example, Dr. Jeanne Arissa Daher and her twin sister, Dr. Mouna Arissi Daher, who is an ophthalmologist at CHUM. Both deserve to be complimented. Their accomplishments are thanks to the devotion of their mother, Grace Daguerre. Far from the spotlight, this lady, who was a lawyer by training, raised 5 high-achieving children, despite the challenge of being forced from their war-torn country. Her unconditional love and her commitment, strength of character, passion, and vision have made her a true inspiration. In this Women's History Month, I invite all of my colleagues to celebrate these exceptional women. Long live science and long live Lebanon.
The honourable member for Quebec-Mactaquac.
Mr. Speaker, October 1st was National Seniors Day, a day recognizing the invaluable contributions made by seniors to my riding and indeed all ridings of those in this place. I rise today to celebrate the important contributions that they have made to the national discourse.
I'd like to thank my colleague, the member for Nickel-Belt, for having tabled a motion that calls on the government to take measures that would help improve the quality of life of seniors in Canada.
I look forward to welcoming him to Quebec-Mactaquac and invite seniors living in my riding to join us with a robust dialogue. Mr. Speaker, the province of New Brunswick has the oldest population in Canada, making it increasingly important to ensure that seniors and their families have access to the information, key services, and programs available in their communities. On Wednesday, October the 11th, my office is partnering with the New Brunswick Wellness Branch and the New Brunswick Wellness Network to hold a Seniors Roundtable and a Healthy Living and Aging Well Expo. All constituents are encouraged to attend, participate in the roundtable, and learn about the resources and services available to seniors in our area. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Saskatoon University.
Mr. Speaker, on September 10th, I had the honour of attending Canada's Walk of Hope for Ovarian Cancer along Highway 60 near Saskatoon. Striving for early detection was the theme of the walk. More research needs to be done so that methods of early detection of ovarian cancer can be developed. Unfortunately, there is no reliable screening test for ovarian cancer. 2 of my friends, Brenda from Cudworth and Denise from Saskatoon, have each lost their battle with ovarian cancer, and I do miss both of them. If you have any signs and symptoms that may indicate ovarian cancer, please talk to your physician. Even though close to 3,000 women in Canada are diagnosed with ovarian cancer each year, only 2% of donations for cancer are directed toward this disease. In the competition for research dollars is one disease that is sometimes overlooked. Ovarian Cancer Canada welcomes volunteers and your financial support. Please visit ovariancanada.org today to donate and get involved and support your friends and family who have struggled against this tragic illness.
The honourable member for Cumberland-Colchester.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. As a cancer survivor myself, it is important to remember that this is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Month, so please let us pause to remember all of the mothers and daughters and sisters and friends who have lost their lives to this terrible disease. But let us also celebrate the great strides in detection, prevention, and treatment that have been made in the past decades. Like all cancer, early detection is essential to maximizing the chances of survival. I believe that early detection just simply saved my life. If you have a mother or a sister, encourage her to do regular screening. If you employ women, ensure they have the time and opportunity to be screened. So let's do everything we can to ensure that fewer women succumb to breast cancer while scientists continue to search for a cure. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Whitby.
Monsieur le Président,
Mr. Speaker, I rise to commemorate the National Day for Nonviolence. All Canadians were shocked and saddened by the news out of Edmonton and Las Vegas this weekend. It's all too easy to think that these terrible attacks, these tragedies, could never happen here. Not in my community, not in my backyard.
And with our friends in Edmonton and the United States, our thoughts and condolences are with the families and friends of those who were killed and injured and those affected by these senseless acts of violence. We are grateful to the first responders and the authorities who continue to work in our communities when faced with unspeakable tragedy. On this sad occasion, let everyone in this chamber and across our great country commit to reaffirming the universal relevance of the principle of nonviolence and desire to secure a culture of peace, acceptance, and understanding. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Selkirk, Interlake, Eastman.
Mr. Speaker, today we share the profound grief of families in the United States and Canada following the horrific and senseless shooting in Las Vegas last night. As information continues to come in, we're learning about Canadians that were involved in this tragic event. Families are feeling the immense loss of losing a loved one, including Canadian families. Our thoughts and prayers are with you. Many more families are facing injuries to loved ones. Such senseless violence leaves the entire world in disbelief. Two of my constituents were in Las Vegas at the concert when the attack began. I am shocked and saddened to learn Jody Ansell and Jan Lamborn were shot during the horrific attack in Las Vegas last night. Jan is a friend of mine. Both are being treated for their wounds, and we're all pulling for you. I want to extend my gratitude to all the first responders for doing everything in their power to bring the attack to an end and for assisting the victims. As we mourn for the victims and their families, all Canadians will come together to denounce this callous act of violence. On behalf of the loyal opposition, and indeed all parliamentarians, I want to offer sincere condolences to all families impacted by this senseless act.
Hear, hear. The Honourable Member for Orleans.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my distinguished colleague for his excellent words, and it's with great sadness that I rise today to speak for the horrific events that occurred over the weekend. On Saturday night, Canadians were left reeling after a terrorist attack in Edmonton, which left 5 injured. And on Sunday night, an attack, hate-provoked, at a music concert in Las Vegas left 50 people dead and hundreds injured. These violent attacks against innocent people were heinous, unprovoked, and appalling. I join all members of this House in offering thoughts and prayers to the victims and their families. Our condolences and thoughts are with all those affected, and Global Affairs is following up on reports of Canadian victims. All Canadians stand together against the hate behind these attacks, and we will not let it divide us. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Victoria.
It gives me great pleasure to rise today to congratulate the newly elected leader of the New Democratic Party of Canada, Mr. Jagmeet Singh. Mr. Speaker, this historic victory is very exciting for our caucus and for New Democrats across this country. As the new leader, Jagmeet brings with him a strong sense of renewal and momentum for our party. He also brings his many years of experience fighting against discrimination and inequality. Jagmeet's going to lead the NDP's work to build a more inclusive Canada, one that lifts everyone up, not just the few at the top.
I also want to recognize the incredible contributions of the 3 other leadership candidates. They succeeded in promoting new and exciting ideas to build a better country. Canadians all across the country will benefit from these truly progressive values. The NDP has a strong team in this House, and we are looking forward to working with our new leader, Jagmeet Singh.
Honourable Member for Edmonton-Griesbach.
Mr. Speaker, Saturday evening, the people of Edmonton were subjected to a cowardly act of terror. Above all else, our thoughts and prayers are with the victims of this attack and their loved ones. Canada is regarded as a nation of peace. When that peace is shattered, as it was in Edmonton this weekend, the effects are felt right across the country. Often, we feel outraged at an attack on our fellow citizens, but instead of focusing on anger, we must focus on our strength. Our strength as a nation is that everyone is free to live and worship as they choose. If anybody needs a model of strength to look at for inspiration, look no further than the great city of Edmonton, and especially to its first responders. These women and men put the safety of the public before their own, and there is no telling how many lives they saved on Saturday evening. Canada is not immune to the threat of global terror, but we can and we must face it head on, and we will.
Honourable Member for London North Centre.
Mr. Speaker, all Canadians stand with the City of Edmonton in the wake of the terrorist attack committed on Saturday. Everyone across the country, and certainly everyone in this House, is thinking of the injured and of their loved ones. We hope for their full and speedy recoveries. We are also grateful for the first responders who answered the call, as they always do, with courage and dedication, and for those who have been working ever since to ensure that everybody is safe. This vicious act of terror has left us devastated and outraged, but not intimidated and certainly not divided. Canadians will support each other and overcome this tragedy together. We know that we must remain forever vigilant against hate and extremism, just as we remain united in our unshakable determination to make this country, more than ever, a shining example of openness, inclusion, and strength through diversity. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Oral questions. Questions orales. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are shocked and saddened following the terrorist attack in Edmonton this weekend.
By the attack in Edmonton, in which an ISIS-inspired individual injured several people, including a brave police officer. The terrorist ideologies have no place in our great country, and our thoughts and prayers remain with those who are injured, and we all wish them a speedy recovery. Can the Minister update the House on how the government is responding to this incident, and will he join us in sending our deepest condolences to all those who are injured?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, we are all appalled by the terror attack in Edmonton over the weekend. All Canadians totally condemn such horrible violence. Our thoughts and prayers are indeed with the 5 victims who were injured. 3 have already been released from hospital. 2 are still in care. The police investigation is still early but vigorously ongoing, led by the RCMP in close collaboration with Edmonton City Police. As was said by the Prime Minister, by Premier Notley, Mayor Iveson, RCMP Commissioner Dubois, Edmonton Police Chief Connect, and many members in this House today. We will not allow this to divide us, and we will not be intimidated.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are also shocked and disturbed by what appears to be the worst mass shooting in U.S. history. Last night, over 50 people were killed and another 500 injured by a shooting on the Las Vegas Strip. Reports indicate that at least 2 Canadians, a 28-year-old woman from Alberta and a 23-year-old man from British Columbia, were killed in this despicable act of terrorism. Can the Minister please provide an update to the House on how the government has responded and what consular assistance has been offered to Canadians visiting Las Vegas at this time?
The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, Canada strongly condemns the horrific attack which took place in Las Vegas that killed and injured so many innocent people. Our thoughts and condolences are with the friends and family of those killed. I am very sad to confirm that at least 1 Canadian is among those killed. Canadian consular officials are working closely with U.S. authorities to identify and help any other Canadians hurt by this dreadful attack. And if any Canadians listening are aware of friends and family who may be harmed or caught up in the attack, please do get in touch with Global Affairs immediately. And I think I can say for all members of this House that Canada stands with the United States and with the American people following this terrible attack.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Monsieur le Président, les soi-disant
Mr. Speaker, the so-called consultations by the Liberals on the unfair taxes end today, and it's clear that the Liberals weren't prepared to listen to farmers or small business owners by organizing these consultations in the summer. Premiers of the provinces and territories will be in Ottawa tomorrow, and they're calling for an extension for the consultations. Will the Prime Minister listen to the advice of his counterparts and finally listen to the concerns of Canadians and extend these consultations? Mr. Speaker, we know that it's very important to have a system that is fair. At the same time, we know that it's very important to listen. And that's why, over the past 2 months, we had an opportunity to listen to Canadians across the country, to listen to how we can facilitate change in an appropriate way. We listened. We will continue with our measures, with the important steps stemming from the consultations. The Honourable Member for Beauce.
The Finance Minister has not listened to the concern of thousands of Canadians worried about the future of their family small business. Meanwhile, Monroe Chapelle sells private pension plans to those who will be affected by this tax increase. This is not only a conflict of interest, it is also an insult to Canadians. Yes, when the Finance Minister will listen and lower taxes to small businesses?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, as I've said, we do want to make sure that we move forward to ensure that our tax system is fair for the long term. We know that as we do that, we've got to come forth with measures, as we've done, and listen to Canadians to make sure that we're actually having the desired impact. So I can assure this House and I can assure Canadians that we've been out listening, that we will take their considerations into our deliberations, and we'll move forward to make sure that our system is fair and that we do it in a way that does not impact people inappropriately.
The Honourable Member for Beauce. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Finance didn't listen to entrepreneurs across the country, especially their fears about the future of their businesses. But in the meantime, Monroe Chapelle is selling private pension plans to people who will benefit through these botched reforms. Mr. Speaker, this is a conflict of interest, and I think that Canadians expect more of the Minister of Finance. It's an insult to Canadians. When will the Minister finally understand and stop being so bent on indebting Canada and taxing small businesses at the expense of the future growth of these businesses?
Speaking on.
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, we know that it's very important for small and medium-sized businesses to have a tax system that encourages investment. At the same time, it's important to have a fair system, and that's the objective of our measures. We have determined that it's very important to listen, and that's why we held consultations. We will listen to what we heard. This is very important for the decisions we will be making in the future. This is what we will do. The Honourable Member for Rosemont-la-Petite-Patrie. Mr. Speaker, in Catalonia, we saw disturbing scenes from a past we thought gone. People were injured, shot at with rubber bullets. old people were dragged through the streets. Why? Because they wanted to vote. Madrid used force to violate the Catalonian people's right to self-determination. The Prime Minister is always so eager to give lessons in democracy and human rights to everyone. He's remained silent. Why is there government silence on the situation in Catalonia? I'd like to take a moment to congratulate the NDP on the election of their new leader. His election will bring new diversity among the leaders of the federal parties.
On protecting the environment, growing the economy, and building a stronger middle class. We look forward to a constructive debate and working together with the NDP towards a common goal of building a better future for all Canadians. We just wanted to say congratulations. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Rosemont-La-Petite-Patrie.
I'll give the government a second chance. It was about Catalonia. The Prime Minister has made a big deal about Canada being back on the international scene. Yet, when it comes time to step up to the plate and condemn violation of democratic principles in Catalonia, his government chooses not to. In the process of trying to vote, people are being arrested and subjected to violence. These actions need to be condemned. Why does this government continue to remain silent?
The Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, Canada, of course, values its relationship with Spain. While the issue of Catalonia is an internal matter for Spain, yesterday's reports of violence are very concerning. A solution to this debate should be found respectfully, within the rule of law, according to the Spanish Constitution, and through peaceful dialogue. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Longueuil-Saint-Hubert. Mr. Speaker, yesterday at Tout le monde en parle, the Minister of Heritage was unable to defend the indefensible, her agreement with Netflix. No one in Quebec thinks it's a good agreement. The minister continues to boast that we're the only country to have signed this type of a deal with Netflix. Well, that's normal because no other country would want to give up their cultural sovereignty. The minister has said it's impossible to do otherwise, but in fact, Japan, Australia, Norway, and the European Union are making people like Netflix pay their part. Why can't we do it? The Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hear the concerns from the field. In the digital era, we must protect and promote our creators and our creative industries. That's what I proposed on Thursday, a plan that will modernize a sector that hasn't been modernized for a long time, and I hope to work closely with members of the community to do so.
The Minister continues to brag that Canada is the first country to make such a deal with Netflix. Well, I'll tell you why. Surely it's a great deal for Netflix, but not for Canadians. 3/4 of this investment comes directly from Canadians through a Netflix rates hike. In the meantime, other countries are trying to create a level playing field by ensuring large corporations like Netflix pay their fair share. So why is this government working for the best interest of large American companies and not for us, Canadians?
Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage.
Mr. Speaker, we're extremely proud of the vision for a Creative Canada that we had the chance to present last Thursday, including that and very historic investment on the part of a foreign platform, which is Netflix, of $500 million over the next 5 years in Canadian productions. And therefore, we think this is a great news for our industry, and we'll work to make sure that we modernize our sector to protect and promote our culture during this important time, which is the digital shift. Thank you.
Honourable Opposition House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the consultation period on the unfair Liberal tax changes is coming to an end, and while many questions are unanswered, what is clear is that companies like Morneau-Shepell will be sheltered from these tax increases, and specifically Morneau-Shepell will benefit from these tax changes. Now, going after small businesses while protecting one's own investment is hypocritical, but does the Minister of Finance not see that this decision appears to put him in a direct conflict of interest?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, what you've seen is that the system that we have right now encourages wealthy people to incorporate so they can pay a lower rate of tax. We know that that is not the system that we want in order to make sure that it's fair. So we have identified some measures that we know will make an important difference. We've also said that we need to listen to people to make sure that we get those measures right. So we have listened. We're going to continue to listen and make sure we take into account what we've heard in our consultations so that we can move forward, making sure that our system is fair and the people will continue to invest in our economy.
Opposition House Leader.
You know, we know the minister's had a tough weekend, and so he may have forgotten that he committed to abstain from any discussions surrounding Morneau Chappelle. Mr. Speaker, we've heard from expert testimony that the Liberal tax changes will benefit companies that provide individual pension plans, plans that Morneau Chappelle provides. Why did the Minister of Finance not abstain from these discussions? Or is he like the Prime Minister and he thinks the rules just don't apply to him?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
I would say that it's critically important that a Minister of Finance gets engaged in order to make sure that our tax system is fair. And that's exactly what I've done. We've taken a look at the kinds of things in our tax code right now that encourage behaviors for wealthy individuals to actually pay a lower tax rate than other middle-class Canadians. So that's not a system that we want to have going forward. We've done this in a way that we know allows people to have a point of view. They've expressed a point of view on many occasions. We're going to listen to those inputs to make sure that we get this right. That's what we commit to Canadians, and that's what we're doing as we move forward.
Lord.
Order, please. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last Friday, the 5 Conservative members from Quebec City, the Quebec City region, listened to business people from the city, and Steve Marin was very emotional, and he said this: after all of the sacrifices I made, this reform is disrespectful. That's the reality of Canadian business, men and women. At the same time, the minister is protecting his family company instead of abstaining from decisions regarding it. Why is the minister doing that, but hassling real entrepreneurs like Steve Marin? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, as I said, it's very important to have a fair tax system. It's important to have a tax system that encourages active investment in corporations and companies. We know that it's possible to work on those two issues at the same time. That's what we're going to continue to do. We will listen, we'll continue to listen, and put in place measures based on what we've heard during our consultations. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. On Friday morning, we also heard from Ms. Lapierre in Quebec City. When they set up their business 3 years ago, her and her husband, for 10 months, didn't pay themselves a salary so that they could pay their employees. That is the real situation facing Canadian entrepreneurs, not the Morneau Chappelle ones or Bay Street people. Real entrepreneurs. Why did the minister refuse to recuse himself when his own company would benefit from this reform? The minister. Mr. Speaker, we know that people who have small and medium-sized businesses are taking significant risks. We know it's important for them to be able to invest in their companies. It's important for them and for all Canadians to have a fair tax system. We are listening through our consultations because it's important to have measures that work, an economy that works, and investment in our economy.
Member for Carleton.
Fact. The Liberal proposal will take away retirement income splitting for small business owners unless they take that money out and put it in an individualized pension plan. Fact. This proposal will bring in a double tax on passive income earned within a company unless it's taken out and put into an individual pension plan. Fact. Morneau Chappelle is one of the few companies in the entire country that sells individual pension plans. Did the finance minister disclose these facts to the ethics commissioner before he came forward with these proposals?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
We know that our tax system is important. It's important that it's fair. We also know that it's complex. So we know that as we move forward with measures to make sure that we don't encourage wealthy people to incorporate, to have a lower tax rate than middle-class Canadians, we know that it's important to listen to get this right. So we are listening. We've heard things that we know are going to be important in our implementation. That's exactly what we committed to Canadians. As we move forward, we're going to get this right. The consultations mattered, and we're going to be able to make sure that we move forward in a way that will encourage people to continue to have successful businesses in our country.
Member for Carleton.
Well, Canadians are listening too, and they know that a lot of people will be hurt. Farmers will be hurt because they'll pay double tax trying to sell their farm to the next generation. No tax will be paid when that farm is sold to a giant corporate conglomerate like, say, McCain. Small businesses that are trying to save for their future, their maternity, their severance, they will be hurt with a double tax reaching as high as 73%. But a small group of people will be helped, including that minister's family business. Isn't he just a little bit embarrassed to have put forward a proposal that hurts so many people but helps him?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I guess what I'd like to say is that we've actually, in our consultations across the country, listened to farmers. We've listened to small business owners. We've listened to people who want to save within their business for taking time off for their family. So our goal is to make sure that as we consider how we move forward on these measures that are important to make sure that our system is fair, that we consider all those things. And what I've said is that we'll make sure that farmers are not negatively impacted. We'll make sure that small business owners can continue to invest in their business, and we'll make sure that people can continue to save within their business. These are all important objectives we know we can achieve fairness.
The honourable member for Desneti, Mississippi, Churchill River.
The Prime Minister said at the UN that Canada believes in, quote, an approach that emphasizes fairness for everyone. And he said the historic experience of Aboriginal peoples, quote, was mostly one of humiliation, neglect, and abuse. And yet, his lawyers claim that the Indian Residential School Settlement Agreement does not include a right to procedural fairness. How can the Prime Minister allow his government's lawyers to argue that survivors of abuse still don't deserve fairness?
Honourable Minister for Crown Indigenous Relations.
Mr. Speaker, there's nothing further from the truth. We expect fairness in all judicial interactions with First Nations, and particularly with the survivors of Indian residential schools and the execution of their settlement agreements. And I'm happy to talk to the member opposite to find out what the specifics that she's referring to.
The honourable member for Abitibi-Témiscamingue.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, the argument by this government's lawyers contradicts the spirit, intention and wording of the settlement agreement. People had confidence in the Commission, but as you know, the Minister of Justice is an experienced lawyer. Does she think that judges and lawyers would write an agreement that wouldn't even include a fair process for survivors? The Honourable Minister.
Any time that there would be an agreement that wouldn't include a fair justice for survivors. I think that we are looking to almost be done with the Indian residential school is winding down because there has been fairness. So thank you, and I will look into whatever reference you are talking to.
Order. I remind the Honourable Minister to direct her comments to the Chair. The Honourable Member for Grande Prairie Mackenzie.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday I met with Carrie. She and her family are fifth-generation farmers. They've worked hard and made many sacrifices to keep the farm in the family. Carrie is worried that the Liberal tax changes will make it impossible for her children to someday take over the family farm. When the minister stood in this House and committed to phone back every concerned farmer, Carrie took him at his word and left a message leaving both of her phone numbers. She's never heard back, and she's not alone. Consultations end today. When did the minister plan to call Carrie and the thousands of farmers who have called him? Or is that just another broken Liberal promise?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to repeat in this House, Mr. Speaker, that we've been out listening to farmers. I have heard from many farmers, and I want to assure them that we're taking their views into account. We know how important the family farm is. We know that they're concerned to make sure they can pass it on to the next generation. So we're listening to those inputs to make sure that we get it right. And I want to assure farmers that they will be in a positive situation to continue their investments in their farms and continue with their families on their farms after these measures are moved forward on.
Alors, honorable député de Lévis.
Order, please. The Honourable Member for Lévis-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Finance's tax reform will have a major impact on the future of family farms across the country, and the Minister promised to call all farmers across the country who called the Minister's line. And now, because dissatisfaction has spread across the entire country, we know that the Minister's voicemail box is overflowing. Mr. Speaker, will the Minister of Finance extend the consultation period until he's spoken to all farmers who want to speak to him, or is that just another broken Liberal promise? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we know that it's very important to have a fair tax system. We know that it's very important to listen. And so that's why I listened to farmers from across the country, to listen to their challenges. What I can tell you is that we will take into account their views, and they can continue operating their farms, keep them in their families, and that is very important. That will be the conclusion of our consultations.
Mr. Speaker, at Finance Committee, witnesses said that the Liberal tax changes could cost the average Canadian farmer $70,000 a year. Imposing a carbon tax, eliminating the deferral on cash grain tickets, and now these crippling new tax changes will make it almost impossible for someone to operate a family farm. It seems this Liberal government looks at hard-working Canadian farm families as nothing more than wealthy tax cheats. That is simply not true. This minister promised to call our farmers back. Will he commit today to extend the consultation period on these unfair tax changes so he can keep that promise?
Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There's only one thing I'd like to through you. I'd like to tell my honourable colleague. Farmers in this country are not tax cheats, and that's an inappropriate statement to say. What we want to do is create a system that is fair. We understand the importance of the agricultural sector in this country. Just look at the budget. And being a farmer, I understand how important the tax changes are and how important it is that farmers are able to invest dollars so they can be able to expand their business, repair their machinery, build buildings, just to make sure that they continue to expand. That is what this government has done and will continue to do.
The Honourable Member for Foothills.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It's great for the Agriculture Minister to get up and yell in here, but he needs to talk to the person a few steps down from him and pass on that message. The Finance Minister stood in this House and he said he'd be happy to return the phone calls of any of my constituents who passed on their phone number.
Yes, he did.
Literally thousands of Alberta farmers have passed on their contact information. Do you know how many of those the Finance Minister contacted? Zero. Another broken promise by this Liberal government. Canadian farmers are angry. The consultation period ends today, and they feel that their voices have not been heard. Will the Finance Minister make those calls?
Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think the Minister of Finance has clearly answered that question. He has indicated that he has listened to farmers. We had consultations. The Minister of Finance in this government fully understands the importance of agriculture in this country. And he understands that farmers want to invest, and they want to be able to invest in their properties. They want to be able to expand their business. They want to be able to buy new equipment. And we will make sure, Mr. Speaker, that that will continue to be the case in this country.
The Honourable Member for Hochelaga. Deeply disturbing news comes to us from Azerbaijan, where members of the LGBTQ community are arrested, detained, brutally beaten, and forced to submit to medical examinations. This type of persecution must obviously be condemned, but the federal government has approved an agreement with Azerbaijan for armored troop transport vehicles. In light of these disturbing reports, will the Liberals re-examine all arms exports to Azerbaijan and put an end to them, or will they continue to approve the sale of armored vehicles to this oppressive regime? The Honourable Minister for Foreign Affairs. Mr. Speaker, we are truly disturbed by the human rights violations, including the violations of LGBT rights violations in Azerbaijan. Our government is unequivocal in its defense of all sexual minorities. Here and elsewhere, our government firmly defends LGBTQ rights in Canada and all over the world. LGBTQ rights have no borders. They have to be respected and supported everywhere.
Well, clearly, Mr. Speaker, this government hasn't learned a thing when it comes to selling arms to human rights violators. We're now hearing reports of yet another campaign of arrests and torture directed against an LGBTQ community, this time in Azerbaijan. Has the minister expressed her concerns about this campaign directly to the Azerbaijani government, as she just approved Canadian armed exports to Azerbaijan? And when will the Liberals finally turn rhetoric into reality on LGBTQ refugees? When will they turn one-off rescue programs into an ongoing path to safety for LGBTQ refugees whose lives are in imminent risk?
Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, as I think the member opposite knows, I am personally very focused on the rights of persecuted LGBT minorities around the world, very much including the former Soviet Union. This is an issue which I take personally and in which I have been very personally engaged. On some areas, our government cannot speak about what we are doing because of the danger these people face. We are very focused on the danger in Azerbaijan as well.
The honourable member for Kildonan St. Paul.
Mr. Speaker, October is Women's History Month in Canada, and during this month we recognize the monumental contributions of Canadian women and girls over the course of our country's history. Can the Minister of the Status of Women tell the House what our government is doing to recognize women's contributions to Canada's society?
Well, Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the honourable member from Kildonan St. Paul for all her contributions to Canada's story and wish everyone a happy Women's History Month. We all know women and girls who have dreamed big, who have pursued their dreams, have paved the way for the rest of us, women like our newly installed Governor General. This October, our government's inviting all Canadians to share the stories of these women and girls. En ce mois d'octobre, je vous invite.
This October, I invite you to share the story of a woman or girl who inspired you or motivated you to take your place in history. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Haute-Charles. Mr. Speaker, in the news this morning, we learned that the individual who committed terrorist acts Saturday in Edmonton had been suspected of supporting extremist ideologies. But at the time, the suspect was not considered dangerous for Canada's security. Mr. Speaker, what information did the RCMP have on this individual?
Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, as the honourable member will know, I cannot go into detail because this police investigation is ongoing and, in fact, charges have been laid. The individual, of course, has been identified by police now. He is a 30-year-old who entered Canada not recently, but back in 2012 and granted refugee status at that time.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Haute-Charles. Mr. Speaker, we've already seen this movie several times. Once again, a terrorist act was committed by an individual who was not only known to police, but an individual who had already been suspected of expressing extremist ideology that threatened Canadian security. And now the minister is remaining vague on these very important issues. Canadians need to know what information the RCMP had on this individual to undertake an investigation. Why does the minister refuse to answer?
Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, because under our law, a criminal investigation and a terrorist investigation is underway. and I'm sure no member of Parliament would want to do anything advertently or inadvertently to interfere with that investigation. The RCMP, as all police forces in this country, follow the evidence wherever it leads. Where the evidence supports a charge, they lay one and they prosecute.
Honourable Member for Calgary-Nose Hill.
Mr. Speaker, the RCMP previously investigated the Edmonton terror suspect on a tip that he espoused extremist ideology. Did the RCMP provide details of this investigation to the Immigration Minister's department? And does the Immigration Minister support the creation of a formal information sharing agreement between RCMP and IRCC, specifically designed to alert immigration officials when the RCMP starts an investigation on someone who has entered Canada as a refugee or asylum seeker?
The Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, again, I would remind the honourable member that because of the nature of the investigation that is presently underway, that questions of that nature cannot be answered in detail at this time. The police will pursue the evidence wherever it leads, and they will lay charges as appropriate. And with respect to information sharing among departments, I would advise you to examine the details of Bill C-59.
Honourable Member for Calgary-Nose Hill.
Mr. Speaker, reports say that the suspects involved in the Edmonton terror attack has been granted protection by Canada under our asylum system. My previous question was important because when officials become aware of threats to the public, the Minister has the authority to label individuals with this protection who have committed serious crimes as a danger to the public and subsequently remove them from Canada. Will the Minister be exercising his authority in this regard if this individual is found guilty in a court of law?
The Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, as of today, criminal charges have been laid in this matter. Those charges preempt all other proceedings, and those charges, depending on how they are dealt with in the final analysis by the courts, those charges will determine the future prosecution of this case.
Member for Essex.
Last Friday, I walked a picket line with 2,800 CAMI workers on strike who are fighting to keep their jobs because of bad trade policy from past governments. The minister keeps saying how wonderful NAFTA has been for our country, and I'm sure that's true for her corporate friends, but I certainly didn't see her standing out on the picket line with us last Friday. This is the reality of NAFTA for working people, fighting to keep good-paying jobs from moving south to Mexico. What about the rest of us? How can Canadians trust this government to protect their jobs when the Liberals won't even stand up for workers now?
Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, let me assure the member opposite and all Canadian workers that we are fighting very hard at the NAFTA negotiating table for the interests of all Canadian workers and for Canadian jobs. The labour chapter that Canada has proposed is the most progressive labour chapter Canada has ever put forward. It has the support of Canadian unions and the support of unions in the United States. In fact, Elizabeth Warren wrote about how strong our proposals were over the weekend. Canadian workers are at the heart of our negotiating strategy, Mr. Speaker.
Député de Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagot.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagot. Mr. Speaker, Liberals promised to help seasonal workers by resolving the issue of the black hole, but after 2 years, nothing has yet been done. During this time, many seasonal workers in New Brunswick and elsewhere in Canada have no income. Instead of solving the problem once and for all, the government is asking them to wait until the unemployment rate goes up. A real farce. Why is the government breaking its promise and abandoning our seasonal workers? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to thank my colleague for giving me the opportunity to repeat to this House just how the EI system is fundamental to ensure income security, a certain amount of social certainty for our workers, our families, and to guarantee access to jobs throughout the country when sometimes an economic situation is difficult in local regions. This government is making considerable efforts to increase the quality of services and benefits for the entire country, and we are looking forward to working in this manner.
For Lakeland.
Mr. Speaker, the Premiers will be in Ottawa tomorrow to meet with the Prime Minister, and it's a chance to advocate for crucial energy infrastructure like Trans Mountain. But the new BC Premier is fighting to stop it, yet in their first meeting, the Prime Minister refused to even bring it up. The Prime Minister claims to support Trans Mountain, but of course, actions speak louder than words. When did the Prime Minister decide to abandon his responsibility to champion this pipeline, which is in the best interest of all of Canada?
Minister of Natural Resources.
This government approved the Trans Mountain Expansion Project. It approved the project because we determined that it was in the national interest. It was in the national interest because it will create 15,000 jobs, mostly for the people of Alberta. It's in the national interest because it allows us to expand our export markets. We're not comfortable with 99% of our exports in oil and gas going to one country, the United States. We approved it because we believed then and we believe now that is in Canada's interests.
Honourable member for Lakeland.
Then the Prime Minister should have brought it up to the Premier. Energy East will create thousands of jobs for all of Canada and add $55 billion to Canada's GDP. But Eastern Canadians are forced to rely on foreign oil from places like Venezuela and Algeria because the Liberals keep changing the rules as they go along. Provincial premiers are worried and want answers. The New Brunswick Premier said he believes the project is in jeopardy. Will the Prime Minister stand up for energy workers and their families and make sure Energy East gets built?
Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, it's not the job of the Government of Canada to make sure that a project gets built. It's up to the Government of Canada to make sure that the regulatory process is transparent, carries the confidence of Canadians, and understands the balance between economic growth, environmental stewardship, and partnership with Indigenous peoples. Since we came into power, there will be more than 38,000 jobs created in the energy sector, more than $30 billion for Canada's economy inside of 2 years, more than that government did in 10.
Honourable member for Calgary Signal Hill.
Not true. Well, Mr. Speaker, these new regulatory hurdles that the Liberals keep imposing means that Canadian energy development, which is already operating under a world-class regulatory regime, is held to a different standard than, say, auto manufacturers. Now, if auto manufacturers had to take into account downstream tailpipe emissions, like the Liberals are forcing on energy infrastructure, they and half that caucus would justifiably be outraged, Mr. Speaker. I ask the Minister of Natural Resources, how is this fair?
Minister.
What is fair, Mr. Speaker, is that the Energy East project will be considered and assessed under exactly the same criteria as the Enbridge 3 expansion, as the Trans Mountain Express, and that the Government of Canada has offered to ensure that that assessment is done by the National Energy Board at no additional cost to the proponent. The same criteria that was used in the other projects will be used for Energy East.
Honourable member for Davenport.
Mr. Speaker, today is designated by the UN as World Habitat Day, and this year's theme is affordable homes. I was pleased to accompany the Canadian delegation for the UN Habitat 3 in Quito, Ecuador last November. Based on the unprecedented investments in housing in our past two budgets, we know that this government shares the important goal of providing Canadians with affordable homes. Could the Minister responsible for housing provide us with an update on what those investments have achieved so far?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would first like to congratulate and thank my colleague for Davenport for her hard work on behalf of her constituents and for her advocacy for housing. I would also like to say, Mr. Speaker, that since April 2016, our government's commitment to housing has already paid off. 200,000 Canadians have seen their housing needs assisted by our measures. Later this fall, we will be launching our first ever national housing strategy, which will create opportunities for the long term, 10 years of investment and opportunities for every other partner in Canada. We're back, Mr. Speaker, and we're there for the long term.
Honourable member for Richmond Centre.
Mr. Speaker, in celebration of National Seniors Day, I visited many seniors' homes, talking and listening to their concerns. One concern of seniors is identity theft. In light of a major security breach in a credit agency, when will the Liberal government take action to stop identity theft of our vulnerable seniors?
Honourable Minister of Social Development.
Mr. Speaker, the importance of seniors is not only very clear in our mandate letter, but also been very clear in our action since April 2016, where we increased by almost $1,000 the guaranteed income supplement for 900,000 vulnerable seniors. When we brought back to 65 years old the age of eligibility to old age security, which is preventing 100,000 vulnerable seniors from falling into severe poverty, when we have launched and will be launching again important investments in housing, in healthcare, all sorts of things, Mr. Speaker, which are going to produce a...
The honourable member for Regina Louvain.
Mr. Speaker, it was a big weekend. Saturday was National Seniors Day, and Sunday was pretty exciting too. However, the Sask Party's elimination of the Saskatchewan Transportation Company has stranded many seniors, leaving them without transport to medical appointments and family gatherings. This is unacceptable. Will the Liberal government make some of its transit infrastructure fund available to restore needed bus service between Saskatchewan's towns and cities?
Hear, hear.
Secretary to the Minister of Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member for his questions. This government was elected on a platform to deliver a historic plan to invest in infrastructure, $180 billion over 12 years to create long-term growth and jobs for the middle class, create a low-carbon green economy, and improve social inclusion. Since November 2015, Mr. Speaker, we've announced 153 projects in Saskatchewan with more than $210 million in federal funding, with combined funding of over $515 million. Together with the work with the province, we will continue to work with the province of Saskatchewan and deliver the projects that are dear to the Saskatchewan's heart. Thank you.
The honourable member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, Sunday was National Seniors Day. We know that seniors face unique challenges in our society, including health-related ones. Can the Parliamentary Secretary of Health tell this House how the department is helping seniors lead healthier lives?
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the honourable member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord for his tireless work on behalf of his constituents and for his strong advocacy on behalf of seniors. Mr. Speaker, our government recognizes the contribution of seniors to our country and is committed to ensuring seniors have access to health care services that they need. That's why we're investing $6 billion through Budget 2017 to improve access to home, community and palliative care services. This funding, along with our actions to bring down prescription drug prices in Canada and the important work being done by the Minister of Families, Children and Social Development, demonstrate a clear commitment by this government to the health and well-being of Canada's speakers. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Edmonton-Griesbach.
Mr. Speaker, the numbers are in. The Liberals' Phoenix pay system fiasco is worsening. The backlog of cases grew by 20,000 last month. Wow. Hundreds of thousands of public servants aren't being paid their proper salaries. Some aren't being paid at all. These are real people. Just last week I spoke to Michelle in Edmonton. She hasn't seen any progress on her case in nearly 2 years. When will the minister finally stop blaming others and clean up this mess?
Minister of Public Services and Procurement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's unacceptable that hardworking public servants are not being paid the money they're owed. And resolving this as quickly as possible is indeed our priority. We've taken a number of steps to resolve these problems, including investing $142 million to recruit, hire, and train more employees, initiating emergency pay advances, opening temporary satellite offices, implementing in technological solutions, improving business processes, and instituting a working group of ministers. Make no mistake, Mr. Speaker, we will leave no stone unturned.
The honourable member for Pierre-Boucher-les-Patriotes-Verchères. Mr. Speaker, yesterday, Spain brutalized the Catalan people. Spain brutalized democracy. And what side was Canada on? On the side of those who strike innocent people with clubs. And yet, the Prime Minister is always the first to arrive when it's time to drape himself in the mantle of virtue. But when it really counts, his complicit silence says a great deal about the importance he really attaches to democratic principles. Does the Prime Minister realize that his complicit silence legitimizes the Spanish government's violence? The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs. Mr. Speaker, Canada appreciates its relationship with Spain. When it comes to Catalonia, it is an internal matter. We are very concerned by the violence occurring on the ground. We hope that a solution will be found through peaceful means and within the constitutional context. The Honourable Member for Montcalm. Mr. Speaker, when the Spanish government denied the Catalan people to self-determination, Ottawa said nothing. When the Spanish government sabotaged the referendum, Ottawa said nothing. When the Spanish government used clubs against Catalans who wanted to vote, no matter what, Ottawa said nothing. A complicit silence. When will the Prime Minister finally get up and act like a statesman for democracy? The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs. Mr. Speaker, as I already said, Canada appreciates its relationship with Spain. However, we are very concerned by the violence occurring on the ground. The matter of Catalonia is an internal matter. We, like all Canadians, hope that a solution will be found through peaceful means and that a dialogue will occur within the constitutional context of Spain. The Honourable Member for Repentigny. Mr. Speaker, it's rare to find such a broad consensus in Quebec. Liberals, Parti Québécois supporters, tax experts, creators, business people, artists. The Minister of Heritage has not had an easy week last week, I understand. Political, business, and cultural communities are all saying the same thing. The minister is granting Netflix a privilege and undermining Quebec's culture. Can the minister guarantee that Netflix will guarantee at least 1/3 of the $500 million promised into the production of Francophone content? The Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I understand the concerns of the sector. I represent the sector, and I'm working very hard to represent this particular sector. We have an ambitious goal, a vision of protecting our culture in the digital era. Our various laws don't even recognize the existence of internet. That means we need to modernize a system that's 30 years old, and that's why I presented a reform. We're going to amend the Broadcasting Act and the Telecommunications Act to make sure that we can protect our culture. Thank you.
That vacancies have occurred in the representation, namely Ms. Diane Watts, member for the electoral district of South Surrey White Rock, by resignation effective Friday, September 29, 2017. The Honourable Judy Foote, member for the electoral district of Bonavista Burin Trinity, by resignation effective Saturday, September 30, 2017. Pursuant to subsection 25(1)(b) of the Parliament of Canada Act, I addressed warrants to the Chief Electoral Officer for the issue of writs for the election of members to fill these vacancies.
The Honourable Member for Montcalm is rising on a point of order. Mr. Speaker, I think you will find there is consent to table the following motion: that this House honour the ratification of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, which stipulates in Article 1 that all peoples have the right to self-determination, and condemn the violent repression carried out by the Spanish government during the Catalan referendum on October 1st, 2017. Does the Honourable Member have unanimous consent to table the following motion?
The consentement.
There is no unanimous consent.
The Honourable Member for Desnithie, Mississippi, Churchill River is rising on a point of order. Order.
Speaker,
Order.
Point of order. Since the Minister for Crown and Indigenous Relations was not aware of the specifics of the case I referenced in my question, I ask for unanimous consent of the House to table these court documents that state, and I quote from the survivors' lawyers, "The federal government has asked for a court to declare that former Indian residential school students have no right to a fair hearing when their claims are heard for the physical